myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say to...
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and it's welcome to George, Mitch, Steve Easty, Albert, Steve and Stu. We've got some feedback.
Not me.
George, is that you?
Yeah, I put it off. Yeah, it's all right.
All right. No problem. Start off with the 25-man squad. Seems to have taken eternity to announce it, but those of you who haven't heard it, it's Trippier, Dummett, Botman, Cher, Lascelles, Joe Ellington, Shelby, Wilson, St. Maximin, Ritchie, Lewis, Target, Isaac, Karius, Manculo, Wood, Fraser, Pope, Murphy, Almiron, Darlow, Willock, Byrne, Longstaff and Bruno. So ultimately, what does that mean? Well, it means there's no place for Emil Kraft and there is no place for Gillespie, the goalkeeper. As I expected, I've got to be perfectly honest. I didn't think there was much more that could be done. Don't think there's any great surprises out there. Tom was first in with a comment. George, you're agreeing, I think. I think most people will. And, John Joe Shelby, of course, was probably the one we discussed, earlier on in the season. Would he be in the 25-man squad? Is it a waste of space? But we couldn't really answer that because we didn't know who we were going to bring in the remaining part of the transfer window. But, we now know where we're at. I think that's the best we can do. And it's a pretty good squad.
I agree. No surprises for me either. And the experienced ones that are left in are all capable of filling in for a few games if we have any injuries, which is the important thing as far as I'm concerned. And Shelby, when he's fit and he seems to be playing for Howe, could be a useful addition for certain games. Not for every game, but for certain games. And the Gillespie thing doesn't surprise us, especially as we went out and signed another keeper who I'm delighted with. I mean, somebody's done their homework for that signing, in my view, in my opinion. But I've got no surprises, no particular worries is what I'd say. And as I say, those that you could regard as the experienced men in the squad will do a job, and some of them, like Ritchie, could do a job in one or two positions, which is quite useful to have. Manaquino can if necessary. So no, I'm quite happy about the squad.
Yeah, Mitch, it's a good squad, and we'll be making further additions to it in January, I'm sure.
I think Kraft's injury made a decision for him. Probably would have been between Manculo and Kraft for one of the places, and because Kraft's picked up a bad knee injury, it makes a choice for him. I think it's significant that Darlow and Shelby's injuries mustn't be necessarily as bad as first feared, because he's put them in for the squad before January. So, and what my dad's saying is quite right about Shelby. I think a fit Shelby could have been the difference to unlocking Crystal Palace or not, for example. I think, it pretty much expected. I think Gillespie's only got 9 months on his contract as well, so I think that probably says a lot about where he's headed from here. But yeah, not a lot else you can say really, other than the addition of Isaac at the end of the window there really has just sprinkled that little bit of extra quality in, and now if we can have everybody fit for the weekend, that would be fantastic.
Steve, I think John Joe Shelby was the one that we talked about. I mentioned it just at the start of the show there. Was he worth a place in the squad? But, he is a creative spark when he's on top form. Eddie Howe seemed to be getting the best out of him. So his inclusion for when he eventually is fit, it's that old adage, but it'll be like having a newish kind of player, I guess.
Exactly. We're only 11 weeks away from the winter break, if you want to call it that, or shall we call it Qatar 2022 break. And obviously, as Mitch has rightly said, obviously feel as though Shelby and Darlow, their injuries aren't as severe, and we can expect them back certainly available for selection before we get to the 26th of November. I think what's interesting as well, I don't know about the rest of the guys, but perhaps another thought that might have gone through the club as well is that if you have an injury to a goalkeeper, often you can bring a goalkeeper into a squad. You can get dispensation. So perhaps they're thinking, you know what, if the Darlow injury does prove to be that we're lacking cover, and that does that mean that we can call on Gillespie later on, or if there's an injury to another goalkeeper, be it Pope or be it Karius. So I think there's a lot of sort of plate juggling and spinning that's probably gone on. What I would say about the squad, everyone's saying, "Oh, it's a good squad." It's a good squad when they're all fit and when Eddie Howe's got a selection problem. In other words, who he wants to pick. But I think that the backup players collectively are not as strong as a unit as we could possibly want. I think that's what going forward Newcastle will be looking to do to make a far more competitive squad. So interesting times.
Yeah, interesting times indeed. Alwaleed, any surprises in the squad for you?
Actually, I didn't give it much thought because everybody know the squad from the beginning. What else could be? So I didn't feel it's something gonna change. No surprises.
No surprises. Steve, same for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goalkeeper situation. We didn't. Everybody slaughtered Steve Bruce for us last year. We're picking 4 goalkeepers, so we would have been in the same position. So I don't think there was any point in doing that this time. And I hadn't realised Mark Gillespie was so old when he's 30, and so I think his contract's up, and I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a free if there's anybody comes in wanting him. I don't know what the arrangements is in the lower leagues for players coming in after the 25 time comes up, but it may well be that he's surplus to requirements. The new goalkeeper, he's a short contract now, but he's got a few years left, so that could be the 3 keepers, or even he might become number 2 on a permanent basis. Who knows? The rest, yes, and I agree with Steve. The point is that we're not yet in the position where you can comfortably say that I would rather have A and B in rather than A, because that's the thing that we've got to move to next. But I think for our main squad, and if we get the first team out, which hopefully we'll be pretty close to on Saturday, things look good.
Yep, certainly do. Stu, anything to say and anything to add on the whole 25-man squad? It was fairly self-explanatory, I think.
Yeah, I think it was predictable, but to me it's exciting. It's the strongest squad we've had in years. Regarding Shelby, I think if we did manage to get Madison, or who we know that they were after, or even Tielemans on the last day, then would have give that Shelby's place to that, because by all accounts he's not going to be fit until the window opens anyway, or possibly for the last 2 games, which is the Leicester on Boxing Day and Leeds on New Year's Day. New Year's Eve. So it's just a case of getting everything in. The fringe players are quite obvious. I think we all know who they are. But that excites me as well, because when the new players inevitably arrive, our squad will strengthen from window to window. And like any team, we're as strong as our weakest link. And if we just keep churning out the bottom and improving at the top, we're going to get there a lot quicker than what people think. We've got a nucleus of a very good squad there.
Yeah, no, we have. James, thanks for sending your thanks via the lads as well. I got your message. The National Spinal Cord Injury Month, which is something that James has been promoting on Twitter, has had a lot of donations in the last few days since we started giving it a push from the UK. So that's great news, James, and best of luck with that as well. Lots of questions coming in for George. We'll do that halfway through the show. I just want to mention now to the lads about the TV alterations, George. I mean, for those people who, sit and watch it on the TV, it doesn't really matter. For those people who tend to get on the road and, have to book hotels and book train tickets, etc., this is becoming an absolute nightmare. And not, games now being changed not once, but twice. I think fans have got into the mindset of, well, I'll hang fire and book that hotel or train ticket, once the TV changes are made. But then Newcastle's decent start to the season is then used against them. The games against Spurs, Southampton, Chelsea all moved And from a supporter's perspective, it's another low blow because, you know, these TV fixture changes, as I've said, are one thing, but it's then going back and altering the games, George, which is annoying people, and it's not taking fans into consideration, George.
Well, have they ever taken fans into consideration? I mean, we've suffered from it more than anybody else. I mean, I get irritated when I hear people complaining about because they have to come up to the north. We have to go to the south. How many times? 6, 7, 8 times during a season. And guess what? We fill the away end every time. Even when there's no trains, we're filling the away end. And yet people can't go 50 miles in the south to go to their near neighbours. The other thing that struck me today was the number of people who on Twitter in the last few days have been putting their bills in for their trains and their hotels and putting them on display. You know, people, bad enough that it's upsetting the lifestyle and the football, but, you know, 100 and 200 pounds plus already booked up and no hope of getting it back. There really has to be something done to try and put that right. It really, you know, the inconvenience is one thing, but the huge amounts of money people are losing at the time when they can't afford to lose any money at all must be doubly annoying. I mean, you know, if I'd lost money on going to Tottenham or somewhere like that this week, I'd have been annoyed anyway. But this week particularly, when my energy direct debit from British Gas went from just less than £200 to £530 per month. You know, it's just ridiculous. And other people will be feeling that, and then that's losing money for football as well. It's just not right, Steve. We need to try and do something about that.
Yeah, Mitch, not the first time, as your dad says, that supporters have not been thought about, and it's just, you know, it's an ongoing problem, isn't it, I guess, for us?
Same as it ever was. The point I made on Twitter was I wrote to the Football League when I was interim chair of the Supporters Trust, so 14 years ago, about a fixture change against Plymouth being moved at the last minute for television. And the reply I got was, well, Sky, we do what Sky say, effectively. Tough. Same as it ever was. Here we are again. I spoke to my mate Craig, who I've mentioned on here a few times. He messaged me to say he just shelled out £65 for a non-refundable train ticket an hour before the fixture was changed. And, you know, he's like, this is ridiculous. This is just absolutely ridiculous. And he won't be the only one. Of course he won't be. There's people who've had trains, hotels, you name it. And as my dad says, not in cat and hell's chance of getting the money back. And it really just shows what those in the governance of football, those involved with creating fixtures and those involved with the television companies, do not give a stuff about the fans that go, about the fans that turn up on a week in, week out basis. It's about the armchair fan. It's about, sadly, sitting in the Middle East, the global audience. And it's the guys like our lot who go home and away, who turn up no matter what happens. God knows how some of them managed to do some of the things they've done. It's baffled me for years how some of the lads that I used to know used to get to every single game. I didn't know how they used to do it. God knows what they must sacrifice, and God knows what they must give up. And there's no thought for them. There's no buy or leave for any of them at all. Even moving Southampton to a Sunday, at least it's an early Sunday, so there's a chance to get home. But still, moving to a Sunday, we know what happens with trains at the minute, and Sunday services have never been brilliant. And so again, there you go. We've got a long trip to the South Coast on a Sunday. That really doesn't sit well. That's not really right either. But do they care? No, nobody cares. Nobody gives a stuff. Nobody gives a monkeys. And it happens every season, but the Spurs one in particular, to be moved a second time, really sticks in the craw. That really is. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right, and it's not a good look, in my opinion.
Steve, I don't think I'm going to hear anything different from you either.
No, you're not. What you're also going to hear is not only do you get a kick in the nuts, but those who travel away also get a second kick in the nuts when they try and change their train tickets and end up having to pay a fee to the train companies. You know, I saw one of our friends there that we know quite well, who's had to fork out an extra 38 quid just to change the train ticket. You know, so there's that added on. This is where governance of football, the Tracy Crouch review, all that crap that went on, that's going to get sidelined and thrown out into the ether. This is where the FSA and the supporters trusts around the country should be lobbying every single MP that has a football club in its constituency and saying this should be part of the review. It should be written into the contracts that when a fixture gets changed, then supporters who are out of pocket get refunded by the TV companies. The club should be doing it as well. The club should be opening their mouths and the club should be complaining. And let's face it, there's 20 of them and it's for their benefit, for TV money. The club benefits from being on the TV when the fixtures changed because they get £1 million or more for being on the telly. And who loses out? The fans. I'm not hearing anyone from any of those professional football clubs, any of the so-called directors who are on TV constantly. I'm not hearing any of the executives that shout their mouth off or are happy to extol the virtues of their club coming out and doing something to back their own fans. That's what's galling. That's what's annoying. And it's the same. Let's get the FSA. Let's get them lobbying the MPs. Let's get this written into contracts with the TV companies that the fans have to get their money back. They have to be given a proper refund, or they have to be compensated in such a way when they lose out because it's the real companies and such like who are ripping them off. Simple. Call it a rant.
Well, it's a midweek rant. Al-Walid, your views on supporters. I mean, it's a bit different for you because you're in Saudi. You don't have to experience this, but you know, just as somebody watching from another country, it's a bit unfair. Can you understand why we are all angry about this?
Of course, I understand, and I feel very sorry for the fan. I know here it's different, and when we watch and with BN, I feel kind of guilty. They put every game here we can watch, but I feel really sorry for the fans. And as Mr. Steve says, it should be a compensation for the fans. It's not at least, and this is at least think possibly do. It's not not to blame the fan, and he's the one who paying extra quid for that. So this is really they really need to do action for this, because it's sad to feel that. The fans, he's the one who pay for it.
It is. Steve, you travelled home and away yourself over the years, and it's nothing new, is it?
No, it isn't. I think the point that maybe hasn't been made, and I think all the points our lads have made about you should be something, compensation that it's formalised. I wonder if they actually want away fans to go. You know, they're looking at the home team's looking at the situation. Well, there's extra policing. You know, we've got risk of crowd trouble. Do we really want away fans? Which is, I think you do, definitely do. It builds an atmosphere. There's nothing, when you're watching on the television from our point of view, and you know that Newcastle's got the minority in the crowd significantly, and all you're hearing is the Newcastle fans out singing the home fan. That's a great thing. So the atmosphere for all fans, I think, is to have the opposition there. We didn't like the idea when we had the COVID break and no fans in the ground. And I think having the mixes there, but I'm wondering if the football clubs really want that, and that's why they're not lobbying. Is that if nobody came from the away fans, they would be happy.
Good point.
Very good point, Steve. Very good
point.
And
ties in with something else we'll probably talk about later for me.
Well, it ties in with Glasgow Rangers today, where the game's been moved. And they're playing Napoli, and because it shouldn't have been taking place, the authorities didn't want it to put the game on tonight, but they've turned around and said no Napoli fans. That was what was stipulated. So now Napoli have responded, and UEFA responded by saying, well, Rangers fans can't travel to Napoli next time when the fixture's reversed. That's interesting.
Stu, your thoughts?
Well, when you said that people who watch it on TV, it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect. It does And I'll say that a bit tongue in cheek, but from a personal point of view, the Spurs game has really, really annoyed us because I'm due to go to Riyadh 1 week in October. So I look at the fixtures so I don't miss Newcastle games without having a drink. You know, it's great watching it in Saudi with Waleed, but it's nice to have a pint in your hand as well. You know, so I had it earmarked. The game was on the Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, which would have been about 7:30 kickoff here in Bahrain. I thought, right, I go out, have a good night. Don't have to get up early in the morning. I can fly to Riyadh on the Sunday afternoon, and then come back on the Thursday night because I get Friday and Saturday off. And I thought, it's champion. Then they just as I was putting this proposal in to get everything approved, I come up that they changed the game. I thought, well, I'm not flying when the game's on. So now I've either got to shorten my stay or look for a different game. And then there was another time they got Everton midweek, and I thought, I'm not missing that either. So the TV fans, I mean, no, that's just me being selfish, and as I said, a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it does make a big difference when you're expecting something and then it gets changed. But, of course, financially, it doesn't impact us. You know, it's still on the TV. But things like the Southampton, changing it to a Sunday, as Mitch quite rightly said, we know the train services aren't as strong on a Sunday. It's like skeleton staff and everything else. But for the fact, if you've got a yin and yang, Mitch, if you're saying, well, it's early starts, they've got a better chance of getting home, it just means they have to get up earlier to get there. You know, that gets people up like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And what's the point in going to sleep? You know, so it's, again, the lack of consideration for the fans. And you know, you don't want to go down the conspiracy line, but it just seems to be like the Newcastle long trip. Like, let's shuffle it around a bit. And, you know, the Premier League is just sitting there in the ivory tower having a little chuckle at it. But, I mean, if you look at the Southampton on the Sunday, last season we played them on a Thursday night. You know, it's always at the most inconvenient times. These are the games that we should be playing, like the Leeds or the Lancashire clubs, worst case scenario, the Midlands clubs. We shouldn't be going past there on a Sunday any week of the year, let alone when I'm meant to be flying to Riyadh.
Is that Bowley's Southern clubs, is it?
Aye, well, we don't know. I don't know where the line's drawn, do you? I don't know what happens to the Midlands clubs either. So,
Bowley, aye. That's tough.
Quick one on the Supporters Trust pledge scheme. I feel it's only right to bring it up on the show. We did discuss it in depth on more than one occasion on this platform, and £200,000 was raised through the 1892 pledge scheme, which was discontinued earlier this year after the football club had been sold in October last year, of course. The 4 charities that are earmarked to receive a share of the pledge are as follows: the Alan Shearer Foundation, £83,500, the Newcastle United Foundation, £30,000, the Food Bank, the Bede Food Bank, which is also known as the Newcastle West End Food Bank, £27,500, and the Sir Bobby Robson Foundation, £59,000. I'm not sure, as I'm not a member of the trust these days, why there is a difference in amounts for the different charities, but I'm not going to question that. I'm just going to say that it's a job well done in so many respects, and it's probably what I predicted, George, on the show, that this would end up being a charitable donation, but it's a fairly chunky one coming at a very valuable time, George. Well,
any charity, if you're talking about money, anything over 10 grand is going to be a great boon to any charity. So those amounts are going to give those charities a great uplift, and well done to them. I mean, the trust idea had some merit, but realistically, people were never going to put the sort of money in that they needed to get involved in the takeover or get involved in the running of the club. But it has had a very positive outcome, and I wholly support what they've done with it. I'm sure they've got perfectly good reasons why the amounts are different, but irrespective of that, I think well done to everybody that contributed. And while I didn't particularly support the notion of what they were doing, I have to hold my hand up and say that I did make a donation, even though I'm not a member of the trust. But that was more because I had the feeling that it was mentioned on these platforms that it was going to end up in charity anyway. So that's why I got involved. But I think
Yeah.
it's well done. It's well done.
Yeah, Mitch, I mean, it's a big amount of money. Michael Gilchrist saying, totally agree. Steve should have been split 4 ways between the charities. Kenny Ranson agrees 4 charities, equal amounts would have been better. I don't really know. Well, Steve, you've got your hand up there. Do you know why?
I'll jump in there because what it was that from my understanding that the trust went to those charities and said, do you have a capital project that you would like to be funded? So, for example, with the food bank, they were looking at a capital project to produce a pantry bus. So, in other words, a bus like they have in Liverpool that can drive around the northeast every day, and it can, a bit like the old travelling shop, but it can provide a service to the community. That was a project that they'd been looking at. So they said, "Oh well, we'd like to help you with that. Give us some idea of the funds." And I'm sure the Alan Sheriff Foundation, the Bobby Robson Foundation, and the other foundation that are involved will have been asked the same sort of thing, and they've come up with a particular project that they want to ring fence the money for. It's earmarked specifically for that, something that perhaps might end up having a little plaque on something. Maybe it might be a sensory room, perhaps in the Alan Shearer Centre, or it might be for some specific facility that was needed, or a specific bit of equipment in the hospital for the Sir Bobby Robson Foundation. So that's what it was. That was it about. And I think it was more, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. I think it's more a legacy from Newcastle supporters. And I think that's what Alex and the Supporters Trust were aiming for when they decided, rather than just give the money and just see it evaporate into the ether, rather like, for example, the money that you collect when you, like, say, the Great North Run, and it's just suddenly get, there's 50 grand being raised or whatever, and you don't know what it's used for. I think they wanted to specifically have it ring-fenced for a particular capital project. That was my understanding from the conversations I had with John McCurry at the food bank. Because we were looking at that anyway, and now it means that the food bank can go ahead with the project, and then the continuation of that project will be the ongoing money that's needed to keep that going for, say, 3 or 4 years of the project. So I can understand why they've done it, and well done to Alex and the team who worked solidly hard and obviously spent a lot of time reviewing and deciding where the money should go.
Anna Mearnsey, who does a feature on here occasionally, who was one of the trustees.
Yeah.
The Shearer charity wanted it for a sensory room, as Steve said, and a sensory garden, of which there are very few in this area. So that's what they wanted the money for. Okay, Neil?
What else is there to say, really? Mm-hmm. I think a very sensible way and a nice way to leave a legacy from Newcastle fans for all the projects that they've gone forward to. I think that's a really, really sensible way. Like Steve says, you can give amount of money and just watch it fritter away into the ether, and nobody really knows what happened with it. And if there's something tangible, particularly with a food bank, with a mobile pantry, something physical, something you can actually touch and say, "Hey, Newcastle fans did that." I think that's fantastic. For me, the pledge was always going to end up in charity's hands. I made my views on it very, very clear, and that's not because I didn't think it wasn't behind it. It was just not for me. But I think to do this with it and the way they've done with it is very elegant and very eloquent, and well done, lads.
Yeah, Al-Walid, it's always good to see Newcastle fans pulling together to raise money for good causes.
For anything, I love the gathering of Newcastle fans all together. It's a sign for us that we are a team, or we are people who always try. And I remember that pledge before the takeover, and I remember that we talked that it's a big chance that it's go for, it will not reach the takeover money, and it will go for charity, and it's not a loss after all.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. I mean, Steve, I always felt it was a bit of a flight of fancy, Newcastle fans buying into the club. I guess it was just another cog in the works of supporters trying to do something in that frustration to get rid of Ashley.
Well, I think you've got the key word at that time: frustration. Everybody was sort of looking for all sorts of ideas at how you could make change, and we're in the at the time when the takeover didn't look at it was going to happen, and we're going to left with Ashley, or what, and the consequences of that. So yeah, you had to be seen to be doing something, and I think it was born out of frustration. And I think they set it up reasonably well. That it wasn't just a collection of buckets that were just going to ask people to put in. They knew they had to try to get a significant amount. So it was people putting monthly amounts in, and it was set up with a trustee board of respected people like Ian and Warren Barton and a couple of others, and the. I think I always expected it to end up in a charity donation, because I didn't, even if they had got significant millions, I don't even think it would have got us to the real power that we're hoping it would have done, or they were hoping that it would have done, or people that put into it hoped it would. Having a seat on the board in that way to have a real influence, I don't think was ever going to happen. So I think it's been distributed in a reasonable way. The well-known charities, it's a strange round number, 200,000. So I guess somebody's topped it up or done something to make it fit the amount that matches the 4 projects that each of the charities has put forward. So it's ended well, I think, and nobody can feel any discredit or anything in how it was put together. It was well intentioned and a good outcome at the end.
Yeah, the interesting point by Kenny here, Stu. He says it's taken ages to decide where to allocate the money since the question of what should they do with it. We've known for a year now that Newcastle's been taken over. It's a good point. I mean, I don't know what the wheels of finance and charity, how long it takes, etc. I would have thought it was fairly sensible, unless they were waiting to hit a certain amount. I don't know. I don't understand. We'd have to ask the trust that, Kenny. But yeah, look, I mean, regardless of the who's, whys and wherefores, it's there now, and it's going to go to those charities, one would presume, if the people who vote, the trust members who vote put it through.
Yeah, well, we did a whole program on it, and I'm mad enough to put my hands up and say I was critical of the idea. I thought it was flawed. I thought it was fanciful. The figures to raise 1% was needed 3 million. And you start thinking, well, how can that really, in realistic terms, be generated? So was it just to say, look, we are doing something? I believe their focus and their time would have been better off utilised at that time elsewhere. But to see the funds that have been raised, that'll probably be clipped and put on Twitter now, because I haven't finished what I was going to say. So, but to see the
Does that happen? Does that happen?
Oh, aye. And then my wife will get abuse as well. So, but to see the funds raised, and most importantly, the charities that will benefit, it's hugely commendable. And I'm happy to say I was wrong. And I will say well done to the trust, and for those who contributed, most importantly, those who contributed, because there's many people that will benefit from it. And the fact that £200,000, it doesn't matter how it's split, it goes to the charity. And as George rightly said, any charity at this time of hardship for many people receiving a great sum of money is always a good thing. So again, well done to the trust, and well done for the 4 charities that picked. They picked local charities, which is important, because the vast majority of funding would have come from local people.
Yeah, great stuff. Time to give a big thank you to the sponsors. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead, or by telephone on 0191 478 2730, or go onto the website www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. And thanks to 3 Properties, and they specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give them a follow on Instagram, either matty.patter_northeast property or phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil at 3property.co.uk should you be interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickies.co.uk or 01768 210 102. The sauces have arrived, so I'm now going to get them to Steve on Saturday for him and I, Keith Patterson, and maybe John from Q-Tech to try, because I'm not trying the things on my own. And one of the things smashed in transit, and I'm telling you now, we've got a problem on our hands on Saturday, Steve.
Oh, no.
Media Arts, thank you for your video help, and qtechshop.co.uk. Makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe, hit the NUFC Matters badge on the bottom hand side of your screen, and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share to your social media, drop into the comments box to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify, and you can listen to us in your car or on your mobile phone. And if you want to join, well, click join underneath the video. Or if you want to spend a little bit of cash, go to nufcmatters.com and click membership, or put your phone over the QR code and it will take you straight there. What do you get if you do it that way? Well, you get a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. We do give you something for nothing, a free car window sticker. All you need to do is email john at nufcmatters.com and he'll post you one out. And don't forget, we do support the food bank on here. The virtual bucket can be found at nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk, and you can make a virtual donation any time of the year. At the weekend, Supermac will be in the Dog and Parrot pre-match and post-match, 12:30 and 6:45. And Gibbo and John Anderson, well, you can find them in Pumphrey's in the big market. Both of them are free entry. Both start at 12:30. Gibbo and Ando only doing before the match. I have been asked to give this one a shout out as well. The Terrace Club in Seaton Delaval have got an evening with Supermac pie and pea supper, Friday the 11th of November. Tickets are a tenner, a table of £650 on sale now. And the number for tickets is 0191 237 0133. Don't forget, we're also having a takeover anniversary night in aid of the food bank. All money going to the food bank from the ticket sales on the door. It's at the Irish Centre, 7th of October. Tickets are £2 on the door, or you can buy in advance at nufcmatters.com. And being asked to push this one as well. Pause and Prosecco for the dog and cat shelter, basically in Newcastle. And you can buy your tickets for that by going to dogandcatshelter.com, #events. So get yourself along to that one if you can. Okay, it is time for our favourite part of the night, where we all sit back and say absolutely nothing, and you get a chance to ask George. Blue Rhythm Boy says, ask George if he could relive one match from times gone by, which would it be?
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, to most of you, it's probably nondescript, but an FA Cup 6th round at home against Portsmouth, went in at half-time 2-0 down, ended the match winning 4-2, thanks to none other two gentlemen, one left winger called Bobby Mitchell, Twinkle Toes, and Jackie Milburn, who scored two each. And it was just unbelievable, the change. They didn't really get slaughtered in the first half. They gave 2 silly goals away, but came out in the second half and made certain that they were going to progress in the cup. And the two big M's, Mitchell and Milburn, made the difference. Absolutely outstanding.
Great stuff. Ask George, says Tom, what was the best cup final you've either attended or watched on TV?
Oh dear, that's good, because I want to stick to a Newcastle one, and the best one for me would be the Manchester City one, 55, because we weren't really given much of a chance. And to my mind, the lads just came up trumps on that particular match. Other cup finals, the ones I've attended with Neil and the lads I've enjoyed them all, except we tend to come away losing. That's the only thing. But no, the Manchester City one is the one I'd go for.
Okay, John says, evening all. George, was 1980-81 the worst season in your experience? 42 games, 30 goals, mid-table dross, Shinton main striker. I still went to Cleethorpes for the clash with Grimsby on Boxing Day, which was a 0-0 draw.
You're not far wrong, I've got to say. I was having done a lot of this historical stuff with Steve recently. There's some further back which are equally as bad. I mean, we had a period where we seemed to be able to score goals but not stop them coming in. And I think there were 2 seasons where we scored nearly 90 goals and let over 100 in. I mean, it was just unbelievable, you know, and that's bad on your nerves. That's hard on your nerves. And the other ones where we got down as low as 47 goals for a whole season, for 46 matches, 47 goals, and let in nearly 100. I mean, so that ranks with them, but it's not alone. I tell you, we've had some pretty awful times, but that's a pretty good one.
Gary says, what's the best away atmosphere that you've been in attendance at?
Best away atmosphere. That's a good one. I think when I went to Arsenal, I'm trying to think what year it was. We went to Highbury, so it's a while ago, and I've got to say we went with little hope of getting anything out of it, and the lads put on a show. They really did give Arsenal a hard time. My abiding memory, though, is that at the weekend there was a scuffle, not a scuffle. There was a hard tackle on the Arsenal winger. What was he called? Perez. Perez. And he was lying on the ground writhing, and everybody shouting, "Cheat, cheat, cheat, cheat!" and had to take him away on a bloody stretcher. And apparently, he broke his knee. I mean, his kneecap was shattered. We were all shouting, or they were all shouting, "Cheat, cheat, cheat, cheat!" But the atmosphere amongst the crowd was fantastic. And there was a good banter between us and the rest of the fans of the ground. Even some reasonable banter between us and the coppers that were patrolling the boundary. It was really a good weekend out. That was at Arsenal.
Al Stapleton says, George, given the recent news of John Tudor and sports-related brain damage, looking back, does it feel like many of your colleagues were also affected?
Well, interesting you say that at least 2 that I played with regularly have now passed and gone somewhere else, and the start of their demise was dementia, which is quite, terribly sad. It's just unbelievable. And of course, the other famous ones are people that we'll all know about, like the World Cup final hero Charlie Crowe was one of the first. So yeah, I mean, there are people I know and I have known and played with who've succumbed to this awful thing, and it's certainly the research that they're going to do it, or they are doing into it, is very important, because they need some hard facts now instead of half guessing. I have a theory of my own, and it's probably cockeyed, but my theory is, if you head the ball properly, you don't get any problems. It's when you mishead it, comes off the top of your head, the side of your head, instead of full on the forehead, that's when the damage is caused, in my view. But that could be absolutely, cockeyed. But it's dreadful. I mean, it's absolutely awful. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thanks for all your questions. Sorry for those that we didn't get through. Let's finish today's show on American owners again. And I'm going to start with you. I'm going to start with you, Stu. And well, Mark did ask us to ask George. We'll come to George last, but he says, I'd love to get George rant on the new Chelsea's owner's bright idea of us having a Premier League All-Star League game featuring a team of players from various clubs. Neil Macmillan, Stu, says, what do you lads think of the Chelsea's chairman's comments wanting a North versus South League to be played Tuesday, Wednesday nights? The best of northern teams versus the best of Southern players. I mean, does this guy's suggestions meet no bounds, Stu? He's got so many great ideas.
I've got some good news and bad news for you.
Oh, right.
The bad news is I had a feeling this would come up tonight, so I thought when I was at work I'd start making a couple of notes. And there's the couple of notes. It's a full page.
You want to come on Friday?
Yeah, you did this Friday on Saturday. Yes. No, I can cover some on Sunday. I can cover some on Sunday though. But it's where do you start with this? I'll say some bullet points. It'll be quicker. The dangers of the Americanization of the beautiful game are now crystal clear. They're showing the hand bit by bit now. But this big north-south divide, the sort of questions, is the big split. Is it the big six split? Is it Man United, Man City, Liverpool versus Arsenal, Tottenham and Chelsea? What about the Midlands clubs? Like, where do they go? We touched that earlier. Would we be classified as Scottish with Celtic and Rangers? What about the players that aren't picked? What about their egos or the players that are picked? What happens if they get injuries? There's insurance things to consider. Who would manage the teams? Personally, I'd give one to Klopp just to see his reaction. Where would it be played? In the north or the south? But one idea he did think he hit on that he's brought up, that was, it's been done before in the late 80s, early 90s, and that was playoffs for relegation. And if you remember, so you could do it 2 up, 2 down, and then the top two, well, the third and fourth team and the third and fourth bottom teams, if that makes sense, then have a semi-final, final for the last position in the Premier League. That could help the viewing figures if that's what they're after. But it was very interesting. They didn't suggest the 5th, 6th, and 7th teams finished in the Premier League have a playoff for the last Champions League final place. So why was that not mentioned? Because that might affect them directly, and it won't raise extra money if they get knocked out by a team that finishes 7th. Who could be finishing 7th this season? Could it be a Newcastle or a West Ham? And they don't want us in a one-off game beating them and take them out. So I've got a few things. What's next out in the suggestion pipeline? This is a good one. Will there be 4 quarters so that you pay more adverts and generate more income? Will we have cheerleaders? Will we take the players onto the pitch? Will draws not be allowed like American football? So overtime will be introduced to every game. We'll need it for the show as well, I suppose. Will Diana Ross have to take all penalties? Will they be doing drafts from academies now? So you can go and pick 2 players like Liverpool did with Bobby Clark. They can pick people from each other's academies. But will he then start suggesting, like in the American football, how they do regional leagues? Everyone still plays each other, but regional leagues, then you qualify. So that would then put Man United, Man City, Liverpool all in the same league, with only the top one qualifying and Everton, and the second one would then have to go into playoff. So one of the big 6 would miss out. Same would have happened with London, and then we'd be all right. We'd get grouped in with Leeds and Sunderland and Middlesbrough or whoever else they're allowed in. So that would be all right for us. So that's never going to happen. It's just it's a test in the water thing, just like the ESL did. And as you can gather, I'm really, really not happy about this Americanization or any of these suggestions. And I'm trying my best not to swear so you can get yourself back to America if that's what he's come in. Or at least, instead of trying to raise money for the charity, give the Ukrainians the 1.7 billion or 2.5 billion that he's meant to in the first place. That's rant over.
I think that was a great rant, and I'm sure everybody who's watching, I think everybody watching at home thoroughly enjoyed it as well. Steve, just thinking about like referees, we could possibly get this guy in.
But you might need him for
play all the games at high noon.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got the good, the bad, and ugly on this screen as well, haven't we?
that would take care of the policing and the crowd as well. And if you've got his 6 guns out, when I heard it this morning, I thought, oh my God, I just hope he's really screwing Chelsea up as much as he sounds like he's trying to screw the league up. I'm really interested to see how their game goes tonight with Graham Potter in charge of the Champions League. They had Georgies on this morning on Sky, and he he said that the things had been said about amongst the players that he wasn't going to repeat about what the thought of what was going on. So I hope that has an effect on the pitch, and they start to collapse. And when we come to play them on the televised game as one of the adjusted games, that we finish that first box. I think it's the last game before the World Cup break. I would be love to see that we finish above Chelsea at that stage, and he'll then work out how he's going to get his All-Star 11. But ludicrous idea, and I just really don't want any of the Americanism coming in.
Yeah, I think you made your point in a short, concise way, just to fit in the rest of the show. Al-Walid, what do you think about the Americanization of our beautiful game?
That's I remember during the takeover. I remember we tried to ask why they get no much investigation with the American owners. I remember, like, if I'm not mistaken, Aston Villa or West Ham or Southampton. Some teams they have in Delaware in America, and they are not well known, the owners. So I think this is too much, and we have examples. We see, for example, Manchester United, how's the mentality of the team, and they become worst by time, and I think things will be the same for Liverpool, Chelsea as well. They still have football. It's not just about money. I think Chelsea will not be better, as better as was before. I think they will. They will be. I want a appropriate word. I think they will be. Fall down. They will not be as before. I expect also. Graham Potter will not continue with them.
Steve, I can see you holding your mouth there a little bit earlier. Are we going to get 2 hasty rants for the price of 1 during the midweek show?
Yes. It's been 2 years, if not longer, that Mitch and yourself and myself have gone on about American owners, the Americanization. It starts with the takeovers. It starts with the purchases. It starts with Man United, and then you look at Burnley, you look at Crystal Palace. The secretive nature of who owns football clubs. You've now got Arsenal. All of these clubs they're all being Americanized. This is the start. It'll drip feed through. I sent a message to the lads earlier. I said I'll give you my opinion. I said this will be preempting EPL 1 and EPL 2. So all of a sudden they'll be trying to. They'll bring out another Premier League. We'll have 2 divisions. They'll use that as a way of reducing the fixtures. So we'll go down to 18 clubs in one league and 18 in the other, possibly even 16, to accommodate the European Super League that they've always wanted in whatever frame they want. They'll look at their own broadcasting platform to cover that. That's where they'll go next. I've already heard Bowley saying that the broadcasting platform and it could be worth 20 billion a season. Potentially to the Premier League. That would be money going into the Premier League. That's the sort of incentivization they'll do. They'll pick and choose who they want to be in EPL 2. They'll go on capacity. They'll go on the ground. They'll look at the likes of Sheffield Wednesday. They'll look at Sunderland and Borough, and they'll go, we'd rather have them than a Bournemouth with 23,000. We want to go for the 35, 40, 45,000 stand grounds. They'll do all of that. This is the way of controlling. And before you know it, we'll have a franchise, and then within 10 to 15 years, every Premier League club will have another club somewhere else in the world, and there'll be an EPL being played in the Far East. There'll be an EPL being played in America in the summer. You name it. It'll all happen because they've allowed these American owners to come in to Americanize the game. We're being quite laughable when we say cheerleaders and 4 quarters and all that. It's going to be far worse than that. This is where we're going to end up. We can all laugh and joke about the 4 quarters and about Diana Ross and stuff like that, because that's the funny side of it. But the serious side of it is they're going to rip the heart out of football as we know it, and we'll never ever be able to get it back. Big money talks. That's why these guys have come in and paid 3-4 billion allegedly into football clubs. And as Stewie said, I'm more interested in Todd Bowley explaining where the 1.5 billion is that's supposed to have gone to Ukraine that's still sitting in Abramovich bank account. Absolute scandal. Nobody in the British government willing to talk about it. No government minister. It's all secretive. We'll never ever find out. Total rip-off.
Yeah, and I can imagine, Mitch, you've got a little bit to say about this as well, because as Steve Hasty points out, for the last 2 years, it's what we've been talking about, predicting, preempting on the Three Amigos on a Friday night.
Isn't it just? And Todd Bowley's comments show a man who doesn't understand, and nor does he care about the culture of the game he's bought into. Doesn't give a monkeys. He wants to make money out of it. And he's dressing making money up as, look how we can support the rest of the football pyramid. The All-Star games in the States, now, anybody who knows me know I like my American sports, American football in particular. I played it for God knows how long. I represented the Combined British Universities team on a number of occasions. It's a game I love. But it's very, very different. It's very different in culture. It's interesting saying about, do you want away fans to go there? There's not much away support gets into games in American football. Though I have actually seen evidence of crowd violence between a Kansas City Chiefs and an LA Raiders game, but that's another matter. Stuff you think doesn't happen in America, it did. Right in front of your bloody eyes. Anyway, Todd Bowley is starting to lay his cards on the table about what he wants to do. And it's interesting to see Klopp railing against that today, because his owners will join in. They'll be happy to join in.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have a problem, Jürgen. You're gonna have a real problem at some stage if this goes the way they want it to go, because you're gonna have to either stand by the words you've made today or make yourself look stupid. It's quite concerning to me and many others within the game about how the American ownership has crept in and what they want to do with it. The amount of money JP Morgan and other companies are ploughing into football at the moment. MSD must be owed an immense amount of money from football in England at all levels, because they seem to be the go-to guys when you're in trouble and you need a loan. This is all about control. It's all about changing the scope, and it's all about then money out of control. And I think it's rather insidious. And Todd Bowley is the friendly face of that disaster. He's dressed up nice to say, look how he cares and look what he does. Let's remember, he's effectively inserted himself this season into the club he's bought as sporting director. He's made all the signings. He wanted to sign Ronaldo. And when his manager's going, no, don't piss off me dressing room. The manager's then turned around after he's allowed to spend 300 million and said, right, you're sacked. And I'll stand by what I said on here a couple of weeks ago. I'll give Graham Potter till Christmas. And if they're not pulling up trees by Christmas, he'll be gone as well. And because they are desperate for success, if they look like they're going to miss out on Champions League money because of the way they've spent, they've given themselves the same FFP problem that Nottingham Forest have given themselves and others have. If you spend big one year, you've got to make sure you back it up for the next two, because if you don't, you're in bother, you're in hock. And that's why I think Graham Potter's taken on a very interesting challenge there. One where I think he's a dead man walking from the minute he walks through the door. And again, that boils down to the impatience in American sports. Give you an idea how impatient American sports are. Indianapolis Colts this week sacked their kicker. He was the top kicker last season. He's missed one kick on the opening day of the season, and he's been sacked, waived. That's how things are in American sports at the moment. They are not patient. there is no quarter Astor given, and I wish Graham Potter the best of luck.
And Tony, by the way, wants to play a 4-4-3 formation. Work that one out.
Fantastic. Vince is off. He says,
rush keeper.
Rushy keeper, yeah. Vince is off. He says, have a nice day, y'all. Just before I come to you, George, because we've built this rant up that you're going to go on because somebody asked for it. There's Sky are in on it now. On Sky Sports Football, coming up with their North team.
No.
So there's Edison, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Diaz, Van Dijk, Cancelo, Rodri, De Bruyne, Fernandes, Salah, Haaland, and Ronaldo.
Yeah,
there's a bit of a theme there in that team, isn't there?
Yep.
There is.
Well, truly.
Do you know what they can do, Steve? They can fuck off. That's what they can do.
That was awesome, Mitch. Awesome.
This is, and Sunderland have just suggested a few cheerleaders. I don't think they'll make the cut in Ted's cheerleading team, George. But George, what's your thoughts?
Well, going on from what the lads have said, I mean, had we started with this tonight, I was going to say, all I'm going to do is compliment the three amigos on Friday night that predicted what this idiot would do, and he's done it straight away. He hasn't even waited. He's just done it. The other thing is what I enjoyed on the other night when he said this stuff was Liverpool had a match, so that the reporters were able to have a go at Klopp without Klopp knowing what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. And Klopp kept saying, "Did he really say that? Did he really say this? Did he? What really?" And then suddenly, as the wheels start to turn round, Klopp starts saying things like, "Oh, we're going to get the Harlem Globetrotters in as well." And then he starts saying some sensible things like, "Well, doesn't he realise that the American game has a 4-month gap in the middle? Our lads, if they're on international duty, are lucky if they get a 4-week gap, never mind a 4-month gap." So he was thinking, but it was really hard stuff he was going to go to. But the lads are right again. His owners are American, and if there's something to be had out of it, they will have it. The other thing that the club thing did for me is that I think you probably all know I'm not a fan of Jurgen Klopp. There's something about the man that just creeps me. It's probably the fact he's German. That's racist, I suppose. But never mind. There's something else. I've just remembered what it is that sets us off. Hello. There's the fat German colonel who goes around the place, and he has a little bag carrier with specs on. And when they go in to see the general, and they all say "Heil Hitler," the little bag carrier, he just says "Klopp." He doesn't say "Heil Hitler." He says "Klopp." And I thought that's where I've got that from. It's Jurgen Klopp. That's what it is. It's just beggars belief that we're going to tumble into this if we're not careful, with our eyes open, never mind closed, and that would be an absolute disaster for football. But I can't see the fans putting up with it. I think it will go the same road as the European Super League if the fans really get into it, and that's the only way it can go, in my opinion. The other thing is that Neil says he played at American football. He did, and then I think he got a shot at quarterback, and somebody kicked him in the hands, and he realised the dentists with broken fingers aren't very clever. I think we thought it was time to give up.
Brilliant stuff. I'm sure we will go more into this and deeper into this over the course of the next few days.
Sorry, Steve. One more, just to finish off from me. Somebody in the chat said, "Could you ask George if he'd met the Queen?" And the answer is, I've been blessed, and I've met the Queen many times. And if anybody DMs us, I'll tell them the circumstances.
Great stuff, George. Thanks as always. I'm back tomorrow at 11 o'clock in the morning. Malcolm can't do tomorrow night, but we are going to do an early morning shift. So 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Tune in for me, Gibbo and Supermac. Steve and Mitch will be back on Friday night at 5 o'clock. And we've actually got the flyer in advance. Ready for the drum roll with this one, lads? Bear with us. Where is it? There it is. Don't make Steve angry. You'll not like him when he's angry.
God.
Fantastic work there by John from Q Tech, as always. But as I say, I'll be back at 11 o'clock in the morning. Thanks for joining us tonight. Been a great show. Take care, lads. See you soon.
Thanks,
See you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.